All right, let's dive into a fascinating chapter today, Matthew chapter 8. This is where we meet two people you'd never expect to be heroes of faith, a rejected leper and a Roman soldier. They're total outsiders, but through their stories, we get this incredible look at what real faith is, what power looks like, and what it truly means to be made whole. So, how do we even begin to unpack this chapter? Well, our source material gives us this brilliant metaphor. Think of it as a power and authority sandwich. You've got these amazing displays of power on either side, like the bread, but the real juicy part, the filling in the middle, is this shocking revelation about faith that you just don't see coming. And the two key players here? Wow, they could not be more different. On one hand, you have a Jewish leper, an outcast, literally untouchable in his own society. On the other, a Roman centurion, a man with power, part of the occupying force. But somehow, they both approach Jesus, and in doing so, they show us something profound about what true faith really looks like. Okay, so first up, let's look at the leper. His story really zeroes in on this question of willingness, and it taps into this deep uncertainty that I think a lot of us can probably relate to. Now listen really closely to his words. "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Get this, he has absolutely zero doubt about Jesus' ability. He knows he has the power. The only question in his mind, the thing that's been eating away at him, is whether Jesus would be willing to use that power for someone like him. You gotta understand, this was so much more than a medical request. This cry was coming from a place of deep, painful rejection. After years and years of being told you are unclean, you're unworthy, you're untouchable, you start to wonder, does anyone even see me anymore? Am I even worth noticing? And what Jesus does next is just completely radical. See, the law at the time was clear. If you touch something unclean, you become unclean yourself. Contamination spreads. But Jesus steps in and reveals a higher, more powerful spiritual law. His holiness is way more contagious than any disease. He reaches out and touches the untouchable. And Jesus' response? It couldn't be more direct. I will be clean. No hesitation. It's this powerful, clear declaration that smashes the leper's deepest fear. It's like heaven itself is announcing that God isn't just able. He is profoundly, personally, and passionately willing. And this is so, so crucial. This moment went way beyond just healing his skin. When Jesus told him to go show himself to the priest, he was kicking off his full restoration. He was getting his identity back, his access to the temple, his voice in his community. He was getting his destiny back on track. He was being made completely whole. Okay, now let's pivot to our second case study, the Roman centurion. He's another outsider, right? But he shows up with this incredible understanding of authority that, frankly, even the most religious people of the day had completely missed. So Jesus offers to go to his house, and the centurion actually stops him. He says, "I am not worthy. Just say the word." Now, this is not him being falsely humble. Our source material calls this spiritual intelligence. He gets that true authority isn't bound by physical location. For Jesus, the word is the action. You know, most people, especially people in powerful positions, think of authority as something you just have. It's a title you carry, a power you get to use on other people. But the centurion, he pulls back the curtain and shows us the real secret. He doesn't say, "I am a man with authority." He says, "For I too am a man under authority." He understood that real power, the kind that actually gets things done, flows from being correctly positioned in a chain of command. He looked at Jesus and recognized he wasn't just some charismatic teacher. No, he was operating under the government of heaven itself. And because of that, when Jesus spoke, it wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't a nice platitude. It was a command backed by the highest authority in the entire universe, a command that reality itself had to obey. So, what's the thread connecting these two stories, the leper and the centurion? And what's that shocking twist right in the middle of our power and authority sandwich? Well, here's the twist. It was the outsiders who had the clearest vision, the man that society had labeled unclean, and the soldier from the occupying Roman army. They were the ones who showed up with the most profound, the most accurate faith. This is exactly why Jesus marveled. He wasn't impressed by loud prayers or emotional hype. He was amazed by faith that was intelligent, a faith that wasn't just a feeling, but was an accurate understanding of spiritual reality, a deep grasp of who he was and how his authority actually functions. So what in the world does this mean for you and me today? Well, the source material actually breaks this down into two really practical ways we can apply these principles, depending on where we find ourselves. So if you feel like the leper, maybe you feel defined by your past, by rejection, by a sense of being unclean, the path forward is to appeal directly to God's willingness, to ask for his holiness to just wash over and override any contamination. And then you have to be ready to follow the practical steps he lays out for your full restoration. But what if you feel more like the Centurion? You're facing an impossible situation, something that requires a massive breakthrough. Well, the key here is alignment. The goal is to understand spiritual authority so deeply that when you speak, your words aren't just empty wishes. They are backed by the full enforcement of heaven. And that really leaves us with a powerful question to chew on. These two outsiders teach us that the most effective faith isn't always the loudest. It's the most accurate. It's a faith that really, truly understands who it's talking to and how his kingdom actually operates.